I believe that there is unity. The fact that there are many conferences and fora being held, just last week, the Global Platform, this week, this Global Humanitarian Forum, and we're hearing the voices of the presidents of Kiribati, of Maldives, and they're doing their bit. And as a champion for Asia Pacific, would like to speak for the peoples of this country, because imagine in 40 years, the people of Kiribati will no longer be there. And we only speak of 40 years, but actually in 20 years, Kiribati may not be habitable because of the over-extraction of groundwater, and it may not be habitable at all because it would be more saline. He can speak more clearly about that. But what I'm saying is that we must speak not only for ourselves and for our country, but for the most vulnerable. And in this whole scheme of things, I am again very, very happy that Mr. Kofi Annan had mentioned about climate justice. That's exactly what we need today. It's climate justice for the climate refugees who will be lost, who will not have any land to build their house on, whose livelihoods will be lost and will be refugees in another nation, all because of industrialization and the over-exploitation, which is not their own doing.
President Tong, could you pick up on that particular point, that need to have a louder voice? Although there's a lot of cooperation at the moment. I come back to a question I asked you a little earlier, but given that the Senator has raised the fact that your nations use the time frame of 40 years, is there a new political device that could be used to get the more vulnerable states to have their voices heard even more sharply internationally?
Yeah, I think what I believe is extremely important is to truly understand the different levels of threat. I think all countries on this planet are threatened in one way or another by climate change. But I think what has to be understood is the different levels of threat. I think we have countries here with communities on the shoreline. They will be affected. But I think I'm talking of a community that will not exist in the 40 years' time. And so what do we do about that? How do we get the international community? This is the reason that I've been talking very loudly.
Well, give us some ideas. Put them on the table here.
Okay. I've got some ideas. In fact, we've already started programs in collaboration with the governments of Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand currently takes in 75 of our people on an annual basis as migrants. They're picked at random. If each country of this world would do that, I think we would solve our problem. The only difficulty is that we will be dispersed all over the world. But I think these are the mechanisms which are already in place. We have another scheme with Australia. They train our people. They provide training with there is a scheme between Australia and the Pacific countries where our people are trained to international level standards, and they can and could seek employment beyond our borders with the option to stay on, to be migrants on merits rather than as refugees. Our concept is that we would not wish to see our people migrate en masse in 30 or 40 years' time when our country is not able to support life. We'd like to begin the process now gradually so that over a period of time, at least most of those who could would have migrated. Those who need to do so later when it becomes absolutely necessary would do so with less pain, hopefully. So these are the mechanisms we offer to the rest of the international community to look at and to consider.
Right, let's pick up on more ideas from the audience shortly. John Kufuor, moving forward, the political dynamic, the political pressure, what needs to be done, do you believe, to bring together the voices?
Yes, it's very important that everybody pays serious attention to the idea of globalization. It's a fact that the world is becoming smaller and smaller, and we all would end up eventually in the global village. As a village, we should share values and fortunes, and we should have safety nets in place for the more handicapped to support each other. On the continent of Africa, more and more countries are being encouraged to belong to regional groupings and also the continental group of the African Union. And since we are not all the same level of development, it becomes imperative that the group voice is extended, so the less fortunate is encouraged to feel that it's not alone or doesn't stand alone in suffering the hardships. So the best practices, say like the sea defense walls against the onslaught of the rising sea, would become a common thing along, say, the entire coast of West Africa. The desertification, the Sahara Desert is spreading downwards, costing us our savanna lands, and the solution there is to reforestation, and again, the group through the ECOWAS perhaps would also be enabled across national borders to plant the trees needed to resist the spread of the desert. Those of us sharing common rivers should be encouraged to work together so that at least the water courses are preserved to the benefit of all of us. It's necessary we talk within groups, because as individuals we will be too feeble to make an impact in the global world. And again, when I move out of Africa, the African Union is stressing partnerships. In fact, we have set up the new Partnership for Africa's Development, which met Europe in Lisbon not too long ago to try to work strategies together on cooperation between Africa and Europe. I believe it's the same principle that is being worked on with the Asian countries like Japan, China, and India. In South America, Africa has struck a relationship with Brazil to try to share things that would unite us together and benefit us mutually into the future. So group action is critical for the poorer parts of the world to get a footing in the global village.
Let's get some more ideas. Forums are about hearing ideas, new initiatives, contributions to these very specific ideas. Let's get ideas onto the table here, as with the initiatives a year ago. So please put up your hand or a piece of paper, and other colleagues, I'll recognize you in a moment, so I can get as many voices as possible. Let's go to the Maldives, to Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Nassim.